Alright. Moreover, most all signs pointed downward. So many factors were in the saddle that had historically tended to signal lower fertility. Scores of millions of people were moving from farms to cities. Women were getting more education. Contraception had come easily available. Abortion had been legalized. Feminism was coming up with a rush. Women were more likely to be at work. Another 15 years went by. By 2000, the fertility rate in the modern world had declined from 1.8 to 1.6 children per woman, 24% below the replacement level. This figure included the United States with 285 million people, but in the late 1990s, the US had a TFR of 2.0, higher by far than the 1.60 for the aggregate of all the more developed countries. To be sure, the American rate was below replacement, just as it had been 40 years, but not much below, and bolstered by ongoing robust immigration. The European rate, however, was down to 1.42 in 1995 to 2000 timeframe. There was one more turn of the ratchet yet to come. In the current time frame, 2000 to 2005, the projected European TFR is estimated at 1.38 children per woman. That number is 34% below the replacement level. Japanese rates are almost identical. Alright. The UN Population Division has some astonishing numbers on the percentage of women who have no children at the end of their childbearing years. These include Germany 26%, Finland 21%, United Kingdom 21%, Netherlands 19%, Italy 19%, Luxembourg 18%, Switzerland 16%, Sweden 15%, Canada 14%, and Denmark 10%. The rate is for the United States. The rate for the United States, according to National Center for Health Statistics, was 16% in 2021. 2002. I'm so caught up in the 2020s. Alright. 2002, up from 11% in the early 1970s. In 2003, the Gallup asked American respondents over age 41 who did not have children whether they would not have children if you had to do it all over again. Only 24% said they would have none, with the remainder specifying the number of children they wish they had born. So beware of using the, quote, more developed TFR, now 1.56, as a universal modern rate. I date myself, but the situation would be akin to reporting scores of the championship teams of the Chicago Bulls. One could write that Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen had averaged 20 points in a game against the Los Angeles Lakers, which in fact Michael had scored 30 and Scottie had scored 10. The Europeans are in the basement of fertility. American lies on the ground floor of its split-level house. The United States is the exceptional country in the current demographic scene. This point will be recalled frequently in this book. Among the modern nations, it has been 3 full decades since fertility has fallen sharply below replacement. The UN, quote, medium variant projection, which I believe is structurally on the high side, shows European population declining from 728 million souls today to 632 million by 2050, and then heading down to even fewer people with ever greater speed. The demographer economist Samuel Preston is the former president of Population Association of America and a leading light in the demographic club. A few years ago, he estimated that even if European fertility rates miraculously jumped back to replacement level immediately, the continent would still lose 100 million people by the year 2060. How many people will the modern countries lose in the years to come? Many. Here is the appropriate place to use the, quote, constant fertility variant, CFV, one of the few projections published in the UN's World Populations Prospects. The FV projects population figures as if there were no changes in the fertility rates now prevalent. And as indicated, the modern countries, American accepted, have very low fertility rates today. The UN broke fresh ground when it announced a TFR of 1.85, below the 2.1 replacement level. But the nations with low TFRs, that does not mean a decrease in fertility, but rather a large increase. Thus, the current German TFR is 1.35. Using the new level of 1.85 means going up by half a child per woman, which is quite substantial. As we shall see, there is no evidence that such an increase is occurring. The German Statistical Office uses a TFR of 1.4 children per woman in 2050 for its calculations. There may even be signs that the trend is going the other way. Consider Europe, the big fellow among the modern population groupings. Its population in 2000 was 728 million. Under the medium variant, the European population falls to 632 million people in 2050. Under the more appropriate constant fertility variant, the European population falls to 597 million people in 2050, an additional drop of 35 million people, a total shrinkage of 18%, and projected by the UN to continue falling. To do the arithmetic for you, this means 131 million fewer people in Europe. Joseph Chamey uses the CFV frequently to explain what happens if nothing changes among low fertility countries, and notes that despite massive efforts, no government programs have yet been able to raise fertility substantially. Will such projections come to pass? As demographers emphasize, these are projections, not predictions. Overpopulation alarmists made their case by showing geometrically driven trends. Now new demographers can use geometric progressions to show the impact of falling fertility. Demographers used to talk about the Dublin rate, the number of years it takes for the population to rise by 100%. These days, one hears talks of the halving rate, the number of years it takes for a population to fall by 50%. Sorry, just checking the time. But there is one difference. A population explosion notwithstanding, the world generally did quite well in the second half of the 20th century by most economic and social standards. We don't yet know whether that will prove to be the case as population falls. We don't know because the world has never seen anything like what is going on now. Should these rates not turn around fairly soon and fairly robustly, the ramifications are incalculable. Or as the Italian demographer Antonio Goldini mutters repetitively at demographic meetings, quote, unsustainable, end quote. What on earth is happening in these modern nations? One hears about many separate things, adding up to one big thing. The Japanese, it is said, are smack in the middle of a feminist revolution that lowers fertility. Some Japanese say a deeply troubled economy has added to the problem. In Japan, women who work and do not marry have been referred to by sociologist Masahiro Yamada as, quote, as parasite singles. The distinguished sociological journal USA Today quotes a 40-year-old Japanese single male this way, quote, men don't want to spend time with their girlfriends, especially shopping. What the heck? That's why birth rates are so low in Japan. It is said that Italian men now live in their familial homes into their 30s. Italian women will tell you they're mama's boys. That's why Italian fertility rates are so low. It is said that Germans don't like children. Kinderfischlichkeit. That's why the German TFR is at 1.35. That's why the obstetrics wards are being converted to geriatric care. It is said that in Europe, fertility rate is down because of double-digit unemployment in some places. Yes, that's why European TFR rate is down to 1.35 1.34 children per woman in 2000-2005 timeframe, from 1.42 in 1995 to 2000, but fertility was also shrinking when Europe was booming economically. In Eastern Europe, it is said that the economic dislocation due to the fall of communism must be considered. That's why the Eastern European rate is at 1.2 children per woman, only slightly about half the replacement rate. In Russia, there's a health crisis. That's why fertility is down to an almost unbelievable 1.1. And why Russia is already losing population at the rate of about 800,000 people per woman. Before the fall of communism, it was said that fertility rates were low because people had no hope in such grim and unfree societies. And in Canada, it sometimes is said that fertility is down to 1.5 because the French Canadians, who used to have bushels of children, now have few, having forgotten their alleged demographic plan, quote, the revenge of the cradle, to take over the Dominion, and so on and so on. In all the modern, postmodern, industrialized, post-industrial information age nations that make up what is called Western civilization, except America. All these reasons appear to have some validity in greater or lesser degree. But what is conveyed by the totality of these separate ideals? What are these young Europeans and Japanese having so few children? It isn't war. They were born after the end of World War II. After almost half a century of vicious bloodshed among these very countries, there was a half century of general peace, which only continues, but has made even the thought of one European country marching on another sound preposterous. This has been a great European achievement, made possible in large part by American military guarantees. Can you imagine Germans marching into faltering France? Germans can now go to the Eiffel Tower without a visa, with just a fistful of euros, and no need to accept a French surrender. After the Soviet Union engaged in self-dismemberment, the idea of Soviet troops pouring through Fulda Gap and on into Western Europe became absurd. For now and the foreseeable future, the Russians aren't marching anywhere into Europe. Their only march, one hopes, is toward democracy, civil order, and operative market economy, and better health. We shall have to wait a while to see how that turns out.